Good afternoon. I do not do rules seminars for a living. I'm a salesman by trade, but I've been to enough seminars to know that there must be rules. Because every seminar I've ever been to, the presenter started with a story. So, being a rules guy, I'm not going to break the rules. I'm going to start with a story. It's been said that rules can help the player, and I know firsthand that's true. In a former life, I gambled a bit at this game, and I remember once we had an 18-hole match, my partner and I against two other fellas, and we came to the 18th hole all even. Our opponents were in 4. It was a par 4. They were in 4. My partner was in his pocket, as he normally was that day. And I had an 8-foot putt straight up the hill for birdie to win the match. Well, I got over the putt, and I putted it, and I left it 4 inches short. And I walked up very casually, stood over the ball, and putted it across the hole, over and back of the fringe, down into the driving range. And the opponent, of course, said, "Duffy, we said, remember, no gimmies, no automatic concessions." I said, "You're right, I'm sorry, my fault." I said, "There goes that $50, you won that." And my partner's ready to kill me, you know. I said, "You're right, that's 100% my fault. You're correct." So I started back towards get the ball, and I said, "By the way," I said, "give me a chance of my money back. I'll bet you 100 I make 6 on the hole." He says, "Well, you're 4 now." I said, "I got a great flop shot." My partner's going, "You're in rough here, and the green is like this. I got a flop shot. I got it. The guy says 6. I'll bet you 200 you can't make 6 on the hole." So I went down, and sure enough, there my ball was, the bottom of the hill in the 6 inches of rough, you know, and I got my 60-degree wedge, and I get over the ball, and then I pick it up. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm declaring this ball unplayable." He says, "Well, you're 5 now." I said, "Yeah," and I walked back, and I put the ball right about 4 inches from the hole, and I said, "Of course, you realize on one of my options under the unplayable line rule is to pre-play the shot." So I put it down, and I said, "Is that about where it was?" And he runs to the pro shop as I'm steadying myself over the 4-incher. And he runs to the pro shop. My partner says, "Aren't you going to go in?" And I said, "Nah, I only go in on the hard ones." So rules can help the player. He paid up, by the way. But I know all the things that have been said about the rules. A fellow said a few things. Dumb was one of them. Stupid, complex, inconsistent, subjective. Yeah, I know them all. I'll give the naysayers complex. That's the only one I'm going to give them. Because they are complex, and they should be. Look at all those other sports. They all have a common field, a football field. It's 100 yards. Baseball diamond, seen one, seen them all. Bowling alley, tennis court. They are what they are. How about golf? Oh, no. We got 160 acres of topography. You know what we have? We have one thing. The hole must be 4¼ inches in circumference. That's it. Other than that, go build yourself a golf course. And there's 150 balls in play. You know, those other sports got 1 ball. We got 150 of them going on 160 acres of land. Yeah, it's complex. And we have stroke play and match play and partners and caddies involved in the middle of this thing. And so we need complex rules to take care of these things. You know, another point, you know, golf is the only sport where players are obligated to call penalties on themselves. I said that at a club near Annapolis, Maryland, and a fellow yelled from the back, no, sailing. So I said, like I said, golf is the only sport where you have to call penalties on yourself. I don't read much from this, but there's really only 2 rules. First of all, this is a rule book. No one's seen, no. This is a rule book. There's 34 rules, and then there's this big book. For you lawyers in the room, this is the rules, this is the case law. This is the interpretation of the rules. But there's only 2 real rules, really. I'll read them. I don't read much from this, but I'll read rule 1-1. I guess that's important. It's 1-1, you know. And it says, the game of golf consists of playing a ball with a club from the teeing ground into a hole by a stroke or successive strokes in accordance with the rules. Well, that's very straightforward. The second rule of note, and as I say, there's really only 2. The second rule is 13, and it says, the ball must be played as it lies, except as otherwise provided in the rules. Thank you all for coming. But what this is, all of these, see, this is perfect golf. Perfect golf is you tee it off, you hit it, you take it out of the hole, and you do it until you finish. You see, that's perfect golf. All of these rules just tell us what to do when we can't play perfect golf. Something gets in our way. So that's what this is all about. I don't know the ability of people in this room, but I know where you started. You all started at one point as a beginner. And when you were a beginner, you didn't care about the rules. Hell, you were just trying to get it airborne. And then you just started to observe, you know. Gee, look at that. They get near the green and they mark it. They pick it up and they clean it. Ooh. They get near one of those red stakes and they drop it up by the red stake. If they get near a white stake, they go back and replay it, you know. Just observing. If the ball is in the rough, they don't move it. They don't touch it. They just, well, most players anyway. So they're observing, and then somebody asks them to play with them. And then they're out there playing and they do something wrong. And the player tells you, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. So they learn that way. And then they get into maybe a little 9-holer group or a Tuesday night twilight league with the guys, and they're learning a little more they're learning, and they're picking things up as they go along. Then they get in a charity event, and they start going into a little more serious here, you know, a little more serious, a little corporate golf maybe. People start taking this a little serious, and then one day it happens. A member guest. Oh, what am I going to do now? Now, I'm going to tell you a story. 2009, Philadelphia Country Club. Mainline, Philadelphia, prestigious club. And just like here, their premier event is their 3-day member guest. Premier event. Everybody loves it. First class. Well, a fellow invites his friend George from Chicago to play in the 3-day tournament. George is so excited. He gets there. On the first day, they're out there playing. He's on the 5th tee. And the fellow was playing with him said, George, you've got 15 clubs in your bag. Well, my guys, George, you can't. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's a 2-shot penalty, George, per hole, maximum of 4. You just got a 4-shot penalty. Oh, I'm sorry. Second day, second hole, didn't take him long. George is taking sticks and twigs out of a bunker when his ball was in there. He was taking the sticks out from behind his ball. The fellow said, George, you can't move sticks and loose impediments in a bunker. That's a 2-shot penalty. Oh, I'm sorry. Geez. The back 9 of the second day, his own partner called a penalty on him. He hit a ball up near green. He was in the fringe, and he was going to putt it, but his ball backed up a little bit, and right in front in the fringe was his pitch mark. So he fixes the pitch mark because he wanted to putt it. His partner says, you can't improve the area of your intended swing. That's a 2-shot penalty. George is going, oh, geez. I thought his partner was going to kill him. Well, surprisingly, the third day, they're still in the hunt. They still can win their flight. And George is all excited. He gets there. He hits his range balls. He gets all warmed up. He wants to go putt, you know. And he says, I'm going to go It's packed. There's no place to putt. The putting green is packed full. Well, there's a green over there. So George goes over here, you see. Nobody's putting on 18. It's empty. Oh, boy. So the pro comes over to me and says, Duffy, you're a rules guy. You got to come over and help me. Look at this. I said, is that George over there? He said, yeah. I said, I've heard about him. So we walk over, and if pro says to George, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to practice on the competitive course the day of the event. Oh, how many shots is that? Well, George, I'm sorry. The penalty for that is disqualification. Oh, God. Oh. Well, at least my partner can play. No, George, I'm sorry. Your partner's disqualified too. Oh, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, I saw a man with tears in his eyes. He was so embarrassed, so upset with himself. His shoulders were slumped. He was just so depressed. But I'll never forget what he said. He looked up and he said, can I still go to the dinner? So I'm telling you, this seminar is about you and George. What are we going to do? We're going to bounce around. We're not going to follow any order. We're going to bounce, 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 bounce. If you have a burning question, yell it out. Be quick. And we're going to start with match play. You all know match play. That's the one up, two up. You play 18 different tournaments. Stroke play is the other one. That's what we see on TV. Add up your total score. Well, there's some things about match play I want to tell you. First of all, there's no scorecard in match play. You don't need it. So all that signature stuff and all that, don't need it in match play. There's no penalties in match play. You can kick your ball in the rough. You can move loose impediments in a hazard. You can clean your ball anytime you want. Roger's in the back going, where did we get this guy? But you see, it's kind of neat. It's true. There aren't any penalties in match play. You see, if you don't call the penalty on yourself and your opponent doesn't call it on you, play on. The match, it completes the way you finished it. It doesn't make any difference how you got there. You both could do everything wrong. The only thing you're not allowed to do is agree to waive the rules. That is a penalty. And there's actually one more. I fibbed. The other penalty in match play is if you violate the pace of play for that course. But other than that, do whatever you want. You see, it's kind of neat. Nobody knows this. Nobody knows it's in here. It's not even a rule. It's a note to a rule. It's like at the end. It's the note at the end of the match play rule. It says, a player may disregard a breach of the rules by his opponent, provided there is no agreement to waive the rule. You can agree. I mean, you can waive a rule if you want to. The reason I bring that up early is in stroke play, it's exactly the opposite. You see, in match play, you have the option to say something. In stroke play, you don't have the option. You must say something. You must point out the violation. You're not being mean-spirited. You're being a golfer. You see, in stroke play, there's other players involved. Who protects their rights? You do. So you must say to your fellow competitor in stroke play that something doesn't appear right. Now, here's the tricky part. Have you ever heard somebody say, you're not allowed to do that, but don't worry, I'm not going to call it on you. Have you ever heard that? I'm not going to call it on you. And as soon as the other person says thank you for the charity, what's happened here? They agree to waive the rules. You see? So the rules are so important to the game that if players agree not to follow them, you're out of here. You don't deserve to play. You're in the parking lot. So the moral of the story here is, if in match play you elect to ignore the breach of an opponent, shut up. Everybody wants credit for being the good charitable person. Wrong. Okay. Now, you're playing match play, and you're out there, and a dispute or a question arises. What do? Well, it's easy. The first thing you do is you try to agree. This should be ground under. They didn't mark. Look at that. What do you think? Yeah, I think that should be ground under. Go ahead, take a drop. Is that casual water? Is that? Yeah, sure, that's casual water. No, I don't think it is. So you try to agree on what the procedure should be. If you agree, you're done, play on, even if you're both wrong. Now, the hard part is what happens if you disagree. I don't think your drop is there. I think it's over here. I don't think you're doing that right. If there's a disagreement, by the way, you know when the teacher in the school said, this is the part you got to remember, this is the part you got to remember? Well, this is one of those parts coming up. The reason is nobody knows it. Nobody knows this, what I'm going to tell you right now. If there's a disagreement in match play, in order for Roger to give you an answer when you get in, because this is what you normally say, I'm going to check that out when we go in. 3 things have to happen. 1, the person who disagrees must state the facts. You just can't say, I'm going to get a ruling on that. Say, I think you had a bad drop on number 5, right there. 2, you have to say you want a ruling. You know, it says in the book, you must say, I'm going to make a claim. Well, nobody says, I'm going to make a claim. But you must say, I want to get a ruling on that. And 3, you have to do those 3 things before you tee off the next hole. Because once you tee off the next hole, the previous one is finished. It's over. If you don't do all those 3 things, like you can't say in the 4th fairway, you know, that drop you had back on 3, I think that was a bad drop. It's too late. Now, why is this important? Is this important in your Saturday afternoon game? No, it's not important. But you're playing in a member guest over there at Iron Horse, or you're playing in a member here, and there's a little Calcutta going, or you ladies, you ladies, boy, you're getting those inter-club matches. Oh, you better do everything right. That's when it becomes important. That's the procedure that you follow if you have a dispute in match play. That book in there is nothing but a bunch of procedures. That's all it is. It just has all these procedures, and they always come in 3s. There's things you have to do. You need to identify your ball. There's a procedure for that. You're dropping from a carpet. There's a procedure for that. There are things you have to do. And if you don't do them properly or in accordance with the rules, there's consequences. Okay. You're at the first tee. How many clubs will be allowed? 14. If I start with less, I have to play with the clubs I started with. If I started with 12, that's the amount I have to play with, correct? I don't know. If I start with less than 14, I can add 2 anytime I want. Yeah? You can add if you start with less. How about those new drivers? Can you adjust them? Once you start the round, no adjusting. You're done. How about you lose a club? I left my darn wedge back at number 5 green. I'm at the turn now. Can I go get another wedge? No. If you lose a club, too bad. What about you break a club? I bang it, I break it. Can I replace it? Well, you know, that's a tricky one because the answer is maybe, maybe not. It's cool. Golf term. There's a golf term. I love the golf terms. Here's one. In the normal course of play. Isn't that genteel? In the normal course of play. You see, if you break a club in the normal course of play, you can replace it with any club. Now, what if you break a club not in the normal course of play? We all know what that is, don't we? Huh? then you can't replace it. Another golf term. This one's not genteel. This one's kind of masculine. Obstruction. I've come upon an obstruction. What is it? Well, it's things that don't belong on the golf course. They're not natural, and they're man-made. They're manufactured. Ball washer, a bench, a building, a cart path. That's a cart path. Anything that has a manufacturing component to it is an obstruction. And when we come upon them, we're allowed, if we want, to get relief. Relief. Relief from what? Relief from interference. There's a word. I have interference. Well, again, there's threes. There's 3 areas of interference. 3. The lie of the ball, where the ball lies. 2, stance. If I take my normal stance, if my stance is around is interfered by one of these obstructions, I get relief. 3rd one is area of intended swing. If that obstruction is in my area of intended swing, I get relief. Now, we see in tournaments, the sprinkler box, the big green box with the sprinkler head 10 feet in front of us. I got a sprinkler box there. Yes, sir. I don't know whether I drop over here or over here. They always do that. They try to trick you. They give it the either or. I don't know whether my drop is here or there. Well, sir, do you think you can hit that sprinkler box with your... No, I can't hit it. Well, then you want to either hook it or you want to cut it. Because you're not getting relief because it's not in your area of intended swing. Now, don't be confused with the pros. See, on the tour, the prima donnas, they have the prima donna rule. They get a grandstand down there. They get relief for TIOs, temporary immovable obstructions. But that's only on tour, and I don't think any of you would have to worry about that. Now, while we're on, well, there's 2 kinds of obstructions. Now, you got to follow me logic here now. You got to stay alert. There's 2 kinds of obstructions. There's movable obstructions and there's immovable. A movable obstruction is one you can move. An immovable obstruction is one you can't. We're learning. We got a lot of smart people down here. Well, let's talk about the first one. A movable obstruction. I have interference. One of those 3 things is interfering with a movable obstruction. What do? I move the obstruction. If the ball moves, put it back. That's an easy one. What if the ball is on a movable obstruction? Pick the ball up, move the chair, and drop the ball right underneath where it would have been. No stance, no club length, none of that. Right under the chair. That's a movable obstruction.
Quick question.
Quick, go.
Say you got a 150-yard marker, black and white with it, and right in front of where you are, but it doesn't interfere with your swing. Can you move it?
Well, I would either hook it.
Even though it's movable, you still can't move it. Okay, understood. Fair enough.
Now, here's a trick. Another one of these points. Wait a minute. Another one of these points you got to remember. A movable obstruction. You can move anywhere on the golf course. Hazards, bunkers. If it's an obstruction and it's movable, you can move it anywhere. Last fall, I'm in a hazard, and I've got a shot. I can hit it, but I'm inside the limits of the red hazard. I'm ready to hit it, and the guys I were playing with, I took there's a plastic drainage pipe, piece of it, and I picked it up from behind my ball, and I threw, oh, we got Duffy! Oh, they love getting me, I said, what are you talking about? You can't move the stuff in a hazard. I said, sure I can. That's a movable obstruction. Oh. Who had the question? Yes, ma'am. The question was, can you move a 150 stake if is it permanent?
No, pull them out.
Oh, you can pull them out.
Yeah.
Well, yes, you can. That's a movable obstruction. Yes, I I misunderstand your question. I thought your question was if you can't move it.
No, you can't really pull it right out.
What kind of question did you just answer? No. If you can pull it out, it's a movable obstruction. You can move it. If you can't pull it out, you do not get relief from it.
Okay, say you're 5 feet behind it, your club's not going to hit it when you swing.
Is it one of the 3 areas? Stance?
No.
Then you can still move it. The question is if you can't pull it out, you don't get relief from it.
Okay, but
You can't drop away from it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can move movable obstructions anywhere on the course, period.
Okay.
That's it. No semicolons, no dashes. Yes, ma'am.
Stone in the hazard, like the one, you cannot move it, even though it's a movable object.
Well, let's talk about that. In fact, I've got a story. She's asking about a stone in a bunker. Can she move a stone in a bunker? Well, everything has a name. Now, what is a stone? Well, let me tell you a story. I'm an official at a tournament, and a fellow calls me over, and he's in a water hazard, which is a hazard like a bunker, and he's got a big old rock behind his ball. And he says, can I move that rock? And I said, I don't know. I look up, and the top of the hill there was one of those stacked farmer walls. You know, they stacked the stone. And it was obvious to me, one of those stones came loose and rolled down the hill, and there it was. So I said, I don't know whether you get relief. I picked it up, and I started looking at it. He said, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for cement. You see? I'm looking for cement. Why am I looking for cement? Well, we know it's manufactured. If it's manufactured, then I know it's a movable obstruction. I'm looking for chisel marks. I'm looking for saw marks. I'm looking for anything that allows me to say there's a manufacturing component here, therefore you can move it. Well, unfortunately, I couldn't find anything. I put it right back. I said, I'm sorry, sir. Hold on, let me finish the story, sir. And I put it right back behind the ball, and he had to take a hazard drop, you know. So after the tournament, this fellow was there, one of the real high